All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the No CMO Podcast, episode 9. I'm here with Andy Theimer, currently from Feed Otter, but he has co-founded and founded other companies as well in the tech, SaaS, marketing, especially influencer marketing. He's very knowledgeable in that field, so we're going to go into that. So, Andy, if you could just give them a rundown, kind of like we were talking about a little before the podcast, of maybe your previous company that just sold, and then we'll probably go from there. But I think that would be interesting to talk about.
Sure thing, Ryan. Appreciate it. So Group High was built, started back in 2009, 2010, and really aligned with my philosophy, or how I've always built new projects, is just really scratching my own itch. And I always had this problem when I was working for other people, where I was trying to reach out to bloggers and I was trying to build those types of marketing relationships for a number of reasons, for either product feedback or to build links back to our product, or just to get social, as much promotion and mentioning as possible. Of course, this is 2009, which is before the word influencer was really being used. This is pretty much word of mouth marketing, and probably mostly public relations, or what lived in that domain for up until that point. So, or up until the last 5 years, probably. So, really built to identify a website that was producing long-form content and give you stats on that content, is where it was originally built. And it was great. Basically you could file in a lead of a list of 2,000 blogs or 100 blogs, or use our database, which we're categorizing pretty much every blog on the internet. And you'd be able to break it down by the amount of traffic, the amount of interactivity, commenting. You'd be able to see how big the social followings were. Again, Twitter was a much bigger thing back then than it probably is today for promoting long-form content.
Yep.
So you were able to instantly analyze all of that. And so we were a hit right off the bat with a lot of PR firms and SEO firms especially too. So those two marketing areas really, really loved our product. And then of course we caught the uptick as influencer marketing started to become a thing, and through the 2000s, and really continued to add more and more social data to the platform as the trend has shifted. Well, it's primarily more of a tidal wave towards Instagram and YouTube, and the blogs are still relevant, but definitely kind of scratching their head a little bit, I think that space is. So as are probably most public relations departments as to what their role is in this kind of climate as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really, I guess the aggregation of all of those things in one place is a mandatory, like you said, and going the switch from, you don't have to email every single blog anymore. It's just not, it's, maybe
you
5 years ago. Yeah. Maybe
did.
people, you're right. But I guess, I come from like a music background. So I know that, artists especially, that's all they do, especially if they're independent, or if they do or don't have a manager, their manager's out just, emailing and email. It's like, what, you have to have a way to filter and aggregate everything. And then to not waste time, right? I guess like a big part of your service was basically to maximize the amount of time that you're spending to try to obtain that outreach.
Yeah, that's really what it was all about. And it's an interesting challenge of that business too, because when you provide so many data points, I think we were pulling together 50, 60 data points at some point. And these are things that if you were building the spreadsheet that we've all built manually, trying to target outlets or influencers with, and you're trying to pull together 5 metrics, going and trying to collect a traffic metric, a follower metric, maybe a Moz rank or page rank metric, just to try and pull together 3 or 4 basic metrics would take you somewhere in the realm of 10 minutes per site. And so, we would be able to deliver that in real time. Basically, you could punch an URL and see it almost instantly. So there was a lot of value there for sure for people that were running those types of campaigns on a regular basis.
So is the biggest difference from then to now the transition to the Instagram, YouTube? And if that is the biggest difference now, what has changed because of that, or how has things changed in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest change is definitely Instagram. I mean, Instagram is single-handedly just, I mean, we went kicking and screaming all the way. Like, I think I have an Instagram account, but, it's not something that I've used much. We never really found a good way to use it for B2B promotion, which, kind of my products, my background is all primarily geared in B2B marketing, how companies sell to other companies and the like. Instagram isn't the top channel for that. I don't think. It's more B2C these days still, but so it was a little bit out of my wheelhouse, I think, to be quite honest. And it just, it just shook everything up though, because it was everybody got obsessed with the number of likes. And it was just, it got crazy so fast. And so that's definitely the biggest change. It's interesting because, what do companies do for B2B promotion? And I was listening to some of your other interviews and previous podcasts, and it is, it was making me think. I'm like, in this changing landscape, what do companies do when they're selling B2B? And that's actually been a challenge with Feed Otter, just started in the last year or so in this modern ecosystem, where with Group High, when I started that in 2009, 2010, I did exactly what you described. I went out and started emailing bloggers, like bloggers that talked about PR marketing. That doesn't work anymore. So you start a new company and like, well, what do you do? Maybe you can find a blogger or two. If you're selling B2B, Instagram's a challenge. So that's definitely my vantage point, the B2B marketing space. There's that gap that I'm consistently trying to research and improve and figure out. But yeah, for the consumer space, Instagram has just changed the game completely.
So what worked best for you when you were trying to do the marketing for Group High, say? Like, what if those things were challenging, what was something that, kind of seemed to stick for you guys on the marketing side of things?
Content marketing all the way. I believed it going in. It was the impetus for the idea behind the company. And we ate that dog food all the way through, and saw the return that it can provide. I mean, it started out with me and, my other founders emailing a few bloggers, doing a few interviews. And I mean, it's an immense thank yous to all those people that supported us in the early days of building the company, because they were kind enough to write about us. We had a product that was interesting enough to garner a blog post here and there. I mean, the very first blog post we had written about us appeared in 2011, in early 2011, with version 1 of the product. And it sat out there on PR Daily it's still there. I mean, if looking at the Google Analytics for it, and it's just hundreds of thousands of visitors it's sent. And I mean, the video and the demo in that post was version 1, which never even got traction.
Wow.
I mean, it still was responsible for a tremendous amount of traffic and revenue over 10 years. So just the overwhelming power of those kinds of posts, if you can get them. And I think video is maybe the way to do that more in today's landscape for a B2B company, is to focus on video interviews or creating tutorial content or other kinds of educational content. I think is very underutilized in the B2B space, but always exploring that.
Yeah, I think, I guess on that note, I think a lot of maybe I'm generalizing too much, but I think that a good amount of companies kind of they're not thinking about the long game as much. They're thinking about, let's get these posts up on Instagram and, just let's make sure that we promote them on Instagram and everything, but they're not thinking about, let's start a blog on day 1. And then maybe on, year 5, year 6, the blog finally gets traction, but you have 400 posts now for people to become a fan of it, So could you speak to like the long game, I guess, and like the importance of a company having a blog and just like creating that content?
Yeah, I think that strategy's changed a lot. I think it's still very important for a company to have a blog and produce long form content. The question is really what type of content they should be producing And that's what I'm referring to in the sense that it's changed a lot. We had an awesome, she was our marketing director, was with us for most of the run at Group High, and she was fantastic. The blog production, the content production was through the roof. And I think for the most part, we were producing 3 to 4 blog posts a week during, 2012 to 2016. And that used to be probably my preferred strategy. And just your point, yes, all of a sudden, 3 years later, you have 300 plus blog posts sitting out there, bringing in 100,000 unique visitors a month. And you can just do nothing, literally, and it will just keep coming on in. And we definitely saw that be absolutely true. In terms of how that's changed and how I think the modern company should approach it is, I prefer focus on, a 2,000 word blog post and try just really, really, really hard to focus on the value. Is it a tutorial? Is it something that's educational? Is it a walkthrough? I don't know. There's definitely a content burnout thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think video helps with that, or helps get around that a little bit. And if even if you produce video, I would still transcribe that, throw it into one of the super cheap, free, instant kind of transcriber robots to do a rough draft, and then post it on your blog, and get the SEO value of the text as well. But it's important. It's just, you have to really, really make sure that you're producing content for your audience and that there's value there, and not just producing it for content's sake, which has been probably the more historical tactic.
Yeah, and I think companies will also, like I talked about this on the last podcast too with Jordan from Fusion PR, and we were talking about how companies will just have the intern make the Instagram posts, but what about strategizing these? But what are you gonna do with them? I feel like sometimes there's just very little plan of we have to have an Instagram, we have to have this Twitter, it's yeah, but you also, if you have it, you might as well use it to maximize its potential, right? And not just kind of throw things out there to whatever. So I like your point about use what you know and make something that people can learn from, and then that builds some trust for your company as well.
Yeah, I think that's the direction I've been going. I'm always kind of feeling and exploring myself, and doing that with Feed Otter too, and it's much easier talked about than executed.
100%. Yep.
It's difficult to find people that can go deep enough on a subject to produce truly educational and valuable learning-based content. Typically it's a high-level person like a founder or something that really truly understands it to the point they can kick out something super educational. Or, you have to go try and find a diamond in the rough and somebody that can really go deep and not just, no, you should do email marketing.
Yeah.
No, let's do something really specific, like email marketing, 3 times a month, and specific templates and specific articles to read and other components to incorporate, and all these types of things pulled together make for a much more compelling read.
Yeah, and I guess testing that too, because you could always, it's basically free to test what, to an extent. I mean, at least content, if you're putting out content for free, it's basically free to test which content is going to work. And, it might not be videos, but it might not be podcasts. It might be 15-minute little webinars, which I think we could also get into too, which I think is another great form of content. But I want to transition a little bit to the influencer side, because at You Don't Need a CMO, we work a lot with influencers. We actually have an event tonight at the Ceylon Lounge in New York. It's called Social Growth. It's an influencer event basically on how to grow your social. So I guess what I want to ask you is, were there influencers before Instagram? Were there blog influencers, and how has that landscape changed, especially from you being in a company that was in it?
Yeah. Well, The party line we always held, because we had the website data, and that was some of the more expensive data to get access to, and time consuming, and it took a lot of data storage space to maintain it. We always maintained that the best influencers were influencers that produced on multiple platforms. So that's great. Find an Instagrammer that's really awesome, but if they're also blogging and producing long form original content, and they're also producing video content, those are your best influencers. And so we always really encouraged our customers to focus on those types of relationships. And I do mean relationship. And that was always kind of our sticking point, or how we sliced our world. Again, you bring up the real key that nobody wants to really think about. And that I think is the challenge that's going to be figured out, is that you can't replace the human creative element in those campaigns. And even with a good blog outreach campaign, if you have a sexy product that's truly new, that just piques people's interest organically, yeah, blogger outreach will work. And yes, you can probably get some organic posts from a platform like Instagram. But the other alternative is you have to be a PR person that maybe knows how to spin things, or create a story, or do more with less, and give a starticle, if you will, something you can kind of start the post with, or the concept with. And what do you do with influencers currently? Are you focused on Instagram? Are you YouTube? What do you term as an influencer for your work?
I guess I guess a lot of obviously the huge metric is just like follower count, but in my opinion, I guess it's more, I think we're more concerned with engagement than anything. And it's mostly Instagram for sure. Mostly Instagram and YouTube, is what we like to focus on. I haven't had a ton of experience myself. I've seen kind of the way that it's done. Because I'm not fully deep into the marketing side. I'm more on like this podcast side, but from what I have seen, we're working with a lot of influencers that are like heavy on Instagram and YouTube. And I think that you're right. I think you're definitely right about the content. Because being able to, because people are in a different mindset on whichever different platform they're on, right? Like I'm not going to think I'm not looking for the same thing on Instagram as I am if I'm surfing YouTube or if I'm on Facebook. So I think that is the real skill and talent of an influencer, is can they write a blog that's readable? And then can they also make a 30-second video on Instagram that gets a ton of engagement, and then also make a podcast? Like that's crazy. I think that's a lot of like actual skill and work to like build that up. Like, would you agree with that, or like that
absolutely. I think that's why most people don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't, minimal. Because when I haven't done the search recently, but when you narrow down your search criteria to somebody that's truly a multiple channel influencer that has we'll say at least 5,000 followers on 3 major platforms, be it YouTube, Instagram, and blog followers, or substantial monthly traffic level, it drops that pool from millions and millions and millions down to about 1 million, maybe 800,000 to 1 million, I think, out of the total global space. So, it's definitely a very niche segment of people that can span across all that. And it's really interesting. One of the, as you build a product, you always have sort of that one record that you use as your boilerplate to test everything throughout time. And we always had this blogger, Tina Halpert, still runs a blog, Carrots and Cake. And she's very well published. She wrote for Style, fitness magazines, super fit, just a really awesome blogger, really great fitness and health content. And she was always my go-to test. I would always use her blog in demos, and then all your employees start using that blog in the demos. And anyway,
yep. Good example. Yeah.
But it's interesting. I was out in Boston at an event, and there was an influencer event, and they're like, yeah, she doesn't even qualify for our event. And it was just like, she was a blogger, heavy duty Twitter user, Instagram showed up, and, she's been slowly building her Instagram following, but it's nowhere near what, some of the fitness and other foodie influencers are running on Instagram these days. And it's just like, it was like, wow, like she's produced so much amazing long form content, and it's like she's not invited to the party because she doesn't have enough likes
that's
or followers
weird.
on
That's
Instagram. And it's crazy, right? I'm like, man, it's a different world.
Because that's also people trying to be gatekeepers in a world where there is no more gatekeepers, in that there's no gatekeepers in that world anymore. You can create all the content you want. Nobody can stop you. At least for us, we allow everybody at our events. It doesn't matter. It doesn't,
good.
there's always a general admission, which that's because I hate that. I don't like that. I think that influencers are in like on a level of their own. I agree with that. But to disconnect them from the general public, I think they're just regular people. I mean, if you talk to somebody who has 500,000 followers and you talk to somebody who has one follower, you could still have a good conversation with each of them, right? And they can still offer value differently. But yeah, so at our events, there's always a general public. There's more incentives in the event. I'll give you that, if you have more of a following, but that just, I guess, implies that you put in the work and you built it and you have that skill or that talent. But yeah, that differentiation is good to make too, from like, they're trying to say, no, you don't fit our standards, so you're not really an influencer. Like what really, there's no definition for influencer, I guess.
No. It's
a weird word.
Been argued. It's been reinvented. I mean, we saw somebody created the term micro influencer, or, yeah, okay, great. Like, we always use the phrase little bloggers grow up to be big bloggers. And,
yep.
And it's, we always focused on the relationship, and it speaks to the public relations background that we always had, where it's like, look, you got to treat these journalists with some respect. Like, you're in it together. And that's I think the biggest thing for me with the current state of influencer marketing is it's very much not, there's no mutual success. It's basically a transaction. And that relationship aspect is, we tried to hold on to it as long as we could, but it's just not, I don't think it's really there in most cases anymore.
Yeah, I guess so. So are you saying that it's difficult to build that trust in that relationship when are the influencers expecting it to just be a transaction, or is it both sides have to kind of come into an agreement?
It's a good question. I think on the brand side, they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think on the influencer side, they just want the transaction. So I don't think they know any better, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
So
what should influencers do? What should they do when there's companies approaching them or they want to work with companies? How is there any ways that they can, like tips or anything that they can vet people, or like what types of relationships they should establish or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, the top influencers have agents, right? Have you bumped into that at all?
A little bit. Yeah. The emails, at blah, blah, blah agency, like to try to get in contact. Yeah. So that's a vetting process.
Yeah. I think, what I would like to see in that space is I would like to see more tools for the creators. Patreon's done probably the best job of just truly providing, they're a business, but they truly help the creators monetize, and it's largely YouTube, right? But, the thing with an influencer is it's like all of a sudden you have a business, whether you wanted it or not. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but chances are you now have to become an expert on like contract negotiation. You have to at least go find some template influencer contracts or something. There are so many great spaces. Now you have to learn how to take professional photographs. You have to learn how to record video. You have to learn how to maybe write long form text and how to operate a WordPress site. So you suddenly have all these responsibilities of an entrepreneur where you do have to do everything or hire somebody to run those aspects of your business. And that part of the industry I do not think is happening at all on any level. I mean, the closest thing I've seen to it are some of the dashboards that Patreon gives you, and YouTube's upped its game in its dashboarding. But I mean, I haven't seen anything great on it for Instagram. But sort of that small business dashboard for an influencer is something that I think the industry could really use.
So, yeah, and you mentioned agents too, and I think that a team could definitely benefit, could mitigate a lot of issues that could happen. Because if you take, for example, any artist, literally any musician or artist that has that tours or anything, right? They have 10 people behind them making all these different decisions. Like an influencer, I guess, like you said too, it's a business, whether you want it to be or not. So you really, I guess, having a foundation, a baseline team to support you. Because like these people are trying to do it. They're trying to run their one-man business of, hundreds of thousands of followers, whatever it might be, and do all their own PR, do all their own marketing, especially if they got it organically. They don't even know about the marketing or the PR side, really. So I think, I guess a team could probably mitigate some of that or help.
A team can do that. I think software can do it too.
Yeah, you're right, definitely.
Most companies, ours included, we were gung-ho to do the brand side of it, but producing the other side for the influencer and giving them control. I think there's a couple folks working on that. So.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about I guess, flipping it from the influencer side now to the company, the business side of trying to recruit an influencer, say, for your business. And so there's like quote unquote influencers out there who have just bought an account for $1,000 that has 100,000 followers on it. Put like their first name and a fake last name or something, and like, put up like
awesome
40 pictures and boom, I'm an influencer, right? So how can companies, vet these influencers and find ones that they can actually trust that are legitimate and not fraudulent?
Yeah, the good influencer discovery tools and platforms out there these days have some level of fraud monitoring built in. Tools like Maverick and the like, they have historical records on the follower growth, so you can detect when key changes are made. Things like the name changes, if it's a purchased account, you're going to see those as events on the more modern platforms. They have that pretty well dialed in. Yeah, it's I don't know. I wish more people would build relationships, but that's not coming back probably. So
it's a weird landscape to build relationships. For me, it's not. For me, I've built so many relationships online and through this job that are completely legitimate, right? But there's always two sides of it, and there's always people out there just looking to get the next $500 from somebody that they because. And they'll also buy the account, sell the account. I've seen accounts sold 5 different times. They were like,
wow, good. Really?
Yeah, 100%. Like every week, a new person would buy it and up it $200 and sell it, and then they would just make their $200 and that was it. Which I suppose. And it's probably common, but it's probably rare in the influencer world, I would think, because like these are real people. They're real influencers that have real, social security numbers and identifications and things like that, because if you're doing a business, a contract, you're going to be a real person, I assume. But yeah, it is interesting.
Is there a marketplace out there for buying other social media profiles, like an exchange for buying and selling? I've never looked for that.
I've seen 20,000 followers and a 20,000 follower account for $500. I've seen 60,000 followers for $800. I've seen like all these different things, all these different like numbers, but I would never it's just way too fishy for me. But because I can't trust that, like, just because they have access to the account, like,
right,
they could have just hacked into the account, which it's easy. I'm not a hacker, so I don't know how that works. But yeah, it's a weird landscape. But it's also just such a valuable one at the same time, because you could basically, which I know you could definitely speak to this too. You could build brand trust through somebody. Because if I follow an influencer that I don't even see as an influencer, I see them as somebody who I like to follow, and they promote a product, I'm going to be so much more apt to check that product out. So Actually, yeah. Can you talk
Yeah.
about like kind of brand trust and through the influencer marketing?
Yeah. You know, over the years, we saw a lot of really great examples of that. And, probably some of the most passionate blogger brand relationships were in the home cookware space, both Hamilton Beach and OXO and Williams Sonoma and a number of other companies did really, really good jobs. I mean, and we're talking about, and this is the part that's missing, is like they knew every person they worked with by name, or every influencer by name. They knew so-and-so, started with them, has been working with them for years, did this one great promotion back in the day and was amazing. They knew everybody, and their networks were only 100 to 500 bloggers most. And they would have a sign-up form on their website that people that were interested in partnering with them could come in, sign up, give them their site, and they had dedicated staff to just working the blogger program and reviewing the bloggers and maintaining those relationships and keeping a personal line open to at least the top 50 or so, whatever was manageable. And I wonder, I don't know, is that happening right now? I honestly don't know if that's the case anymore with influencers that are solely on Instagram in such a transactional nature. In those examples in 2014, 15, 16, the influencers were still coming to the brand, more or less. It was like, hey, I'm an influencer. Great. I need to make money somehow. Okay, well, I love OXO, Kimpton Hotels, Hilton Hotels, and Williams Sonoma Furniture. So I'm going to go, like you said, I'm going to go do some good old-fashioned cold emailing and email these brands and say, hey, I've got a blog. I'd love to partner up and create some content with you. And so there was a really good relationship that developed from that. So it was really much more the influencer coming to the brand, I think, and there was a natural affinity, which is completely reversed. I think that probably rarely happens anymore, maybe with a baby influencer, and I doubt most brands are taking advantage of people that have less than 500 followers or 1,000 followers when they come in. But there's a new term for that, right? You got micro influencer, now it's nano influencer or something like that.
It's just going to go on till like I have 1,000 followers. Am I a nano? Like one of my, it doesn't matter.
You might be into micro territory with 1,000.
Man, I'm going up into the micro, man. I got to hit that 2K, 2,500 ish, and I'll be sitting pretty. I'll be collaborating with those big companies then, man. For real.
Yeah.
That's funny though.
But so I don't know. I guess that's the shift, is where it used to be more, I think, influencers coming to the brands they had an affinity for, and now it is more the brands know they need to or think they need to have a pool of influencers or be working with influencers, so they're actively recruiting and vetting and going the other way, which is fine too. If there's a fit, there's search tools that help people match up and harmonize to try and align their mutual interests, but it's just a little different.
I think that people.
Do I sound bitter? I hope I'm not coming off as bitter about Instagram throughout this entire.
No, there's a lot of variables. No, that's why we ask, because we try to because we get a different perspective from everybody, obviously, and like everybody has. Some people are really a lot more into influencer marketing. Other people are like 10 times more old school that I've talked to, and they don't even like. They're like, write the book and send them a UPS to their house, and like there's another side of it, and and that works too. But we're interested in the influencer because we're in it and we're trying to create, a space where influencers can come together and people can also learn, which Chris does. And he basically just has a presentation, has a talk and a presentation where, people, if you're at the lower, portion of it, how can you build that up and then, work with brands? And then if you're already there, how can you maintain it and then find brands that you like and you trust? But yeah, I think it's kind of like, there are a lot of aspects to it, because it's so new. I think it is so new.
When you go into the influencer campaign from the angle you guys have, Are you looking to create content? Are you looking to drive awareness? How do you typically measure things? What are you looking for primarily?
I think that it's important to we try to let if their content is great, if that's what they're good at, making the content, then we're going to let them, make their content. I think we're going to also, we're trying to foster basically like what you said before, a relationship and a collaboration rather than the transaction. That's what we're going for. But we're not going to interfere. We're going to help them for sure, which that is what we offer too. We're basically going to do an audit. We can do an audit on their profile or an audit on their social medias and say, hey, like, this is where you're lacking a little bit, or this is where you might need some help. Maybe let's do some SEO for your blog or whatever it might be. Even just the captions of your Instagram post, how can we, tailor those to get people to read a little bit farther down or something like that. So we do basically everything, but if we try to recognize the strengths and let them capitalize on those, double down on those, and then we can try to improve the other aspects.
Have you, in talking about going cross-channel, have you ever gone into anybody that's, say, primarily a YouTube influencer producing video content and said, hey, let's do an experiment and transcribe your top 20 videos from the last 3 years, and we're going to put up a blog and we're going to put those on there and just see what happens and how transcribing the actual video content off into the blog, what kind of effect it has on, subscriber growth or just traffic generation or email list growth or anything?
I haven't done it personally with anybody, but I've seen it happen and I've seen it done. And I think it goes back to the point of having different forms of content on different platforms and to tailor it. And I think that's an interesting point. I think a lot of people don't even think about doing that. But I can't say I've personally done it with somebody, but I do it for myself. I try. What I don't do right now is I don't write a lot. Like, I make a lot of video content and I make a lot of audio content and I make long form and I do all that, but I don't really write and I don't transcribe. So that's something that I see for myself doing, taking the YouTube, taking the Instagram content and putting it into the blog or the written form. But yeah, I can't say that I've done that personally with somebody, and I've also seen influencers that I just follow on YouTube do that and have good conversion to their websites too.
Yeah, it's an experiment I've wanted to run.
It's a good idea. It really is a good idea. Especially on mass,
it wouldn't
too.
help, right?
I know, and I'd like to see of like 20 or 30 people, around the same followers, maybe around different types of industry, taking them and transferring, and then just seeing how much conversion they get and how many new people they get to their website that don't go to their YouTube. Because that's another thing too. Right. I follow people on Instagram that I don't even care what they're doing on YouTube. I follow people on YouTube, I don't even know what they're doing on Instagram, because I use the platforms differently. So I guess you got to look at how is the user using the different platforms, because not everybody uses them all the same too. So there's that. Goes deep.
Yeah, it's interesting. The transcription tools like Rev or other tools out there are so dang good and so fast.
Know. It's crazy.
You could drop this video into that and get 90% accuracy from a robot that delivers a transcription of this video in under a minute or two. And you're like, wow, that's actually pretty good.
There's apps too. Yeah, there's this app I just got that does it for $5 an hour, I think it was, or not $5, but no.
Oh, really?
What is it? $5? Yeah, it was like really worth it. I forget I could go on the app right now, but it was basically like similar to rev.com. Might've been a little more since it was on the app, but I was like, I take my voice memos and like, I'm writing an ebook right now or a couple ebooks. So I'm like, that's magic for me. Like, I don't have to sit there and type. Right. But yeah, so you could do, so I guess the advice that we could give is like, if you're making that long form, if you're making the video, just have it transcribed and boom, you have another form of content. And isn't that similar to what Feed Otter does, right? To transition to that a little bit. Is that?
Yeah.
If you could break that down.
Yeah. So Feed Otter was built specifically out of a pain point I had at Group High, which was we produced 3 blog posts a day and an ebook a month and all of this relatively great content. We used Marketo to send all of our emails and do our marketing automation. So we had 50,000 plus subscribers, a giant database. We used to do these huge virtual conferences, again, back in 2013. And those are very successful at just building up a massive database in the marketing landscape. And so, but the problem was, is we would produce this content and we would never promote it. I mean, it would appear on the blog, but I don't think there was even a place for somebody to subscribe to receive the content if they wanted to. Occasionally when we produce an ebook, we would blast it out or something big and notable. Our sales team, 10 feet above our content team on the next floor, other than one studious sales rep, had no clue what content was being produced. And I mean, wow. That's a great touch point for your sales team to be sending to leads and prospects. It's just like, hey, this post made me think of our conversation last time. Love to rekindle things. So, to not be distributing your content that you're spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars investing in the creation of. And that goes into where my last question about when you work with influencers, are you doing it to create content or to just drive some awareness? And I think driving awareness is a no-brainer and where most brands come into it. But actually capturing the content, getting the rights to reuse the content for the brand is actually extremely valuable. Getting those pictures, getting the rights to that media or video or whatever it is so it can be included in other things the brand does is often overlooked. And Feed Otter is all about just making sure that when you invest in producing content, you have a very easy way to promote it via email. Still the most efficient means of promoting anything, really.
It really is. People still underestimate it, though. People still underestimate it. It's like you can't underestimate it when you check your email 34 times a day. That's not an underestimation.
You can't.
Yeah.
Somebody said the same thing back in 2011 when I was first starting Group High, and it was like, yeah, we're working with blogs, and like, blogs, didn't those die in 2003? I'm like, yeah, no, they're still very impactful. And, even email marketing, what Feed Burner, not to be confused with Feed Otter, but what Feed Burner did back in 2000, where you could sign up and receive an email of a blog post. That's, what Feed Otter brings into the modern space for the enterprise marketer that's using a big platform. I mean, we only work with Marketing Cloud, Pardot, Eloqua, Marketo. It's a niche product for an enterprise B2B company that needs to distribute content to salespeople or to a large database of subscribers and leads from a centralized platform. So, but a lot of companies don't. I mean, most companies take it for granted. It's that thing you don't do. And, we kind of laugh about it. It's like, great, you created content. Now what? I mean,
yeah, it doesn't have to be a necessary evil. Like it's not evil. It's really amazing what you can do with it. And I think it's same thing with the Instagram. Oh, we're a company. We have to have an Instagram. We have to send out these emails. It's like, no, you get to send out these emails to whatever, you get to build. It's a lot about perspective. I don't want to go too deep in it, but yeah, it's really about like, what can you use it? And like, can you build the email list? And that's important too, right? But just like from the start of having a business, just building that email list from the beginning, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Build the list, always be building the list, always be sending to the list. And, the biggest thing I think with email marketing that I've found, and probably the most, this should be common knowledge, but again, it's one of those things we often overlook. It's just the consistency. The dirty secret I would say is, I don't know if it matters so much what you send, but if you keep it consistent, if you keep the drip weekly or monthly and just sort of keep that same pulse, that seems to be the most effective way to use it. And I fail at that all day long because I'm a founder of one right now with Feed Otter, where I have myself and a couple consultants that help me here and there. But, I barely get 2 emails out a month and not consistent in nature. So having, a once a week email, a once a month email some kind of super regular cadence, same time, same day, same, style of email really is where we see customers have the best results when incorporating content into email and, product updates and other things as well.
The consistency, it's the same for making posts too. And what we tell influencers all the time is, you might have a certain X amount of followers, but if you aren't making pretty consistent posts, like people will unfollow you. It doesn't matter, they want to see that you're working, some people,
that
and
short
they want to
attention
see
span.
Yeah, that short attention span too, because and also what it tracks is, and what Facebook and Instagram tracks is even how long you wait. You don't even have to like it. They get data from you even if you don't like the post. So it's just the amount of time that you stop to look at something, they're tracking that too. So and that goes into the whole data side of it and everything. But I want to stay on the email. I had a professor that was like in his 60s, marketing professor, and he was like, we're not going to learn the book. I'm not teaching you the book. Don't buy it. I'm going to teach you guys how to make a website and make a MailChimp. This dude is 60 something years old. Right. And I was like, what's a MailChimp? I'm 20 years old, 19 years old. I don't even know what a MailChimp is. This guy's 60 something years old trying to educate me on how to do email marketing. Turns out he's a best-selling author and things like he sold a lot of books, but so he knew what he was doing. But there's those people that realize the value of it, and then there's the people that don't. There's the people that are just going to teach you the book. So there's the difference between reading the marketing book and then going out and just trying it, A/B testing, trying the emails, trying different and staying consistent too. So, but yeah, that's definitely important. Build that email list, and then you always have it, which is another thing.
I mean, that's the nice thing too. In my next, I was going to ask you, have you seen any influencers that you've bumped into realizing the potential of trying to get their community off of the Facebook nipple, if you will, of Instagram, where, Facebook is going to, it's just a matter of time before they start, closing in the walls on people on every side. But, the other great thing about building an email list is now you own that community, right? It's one of the only ways you can truly own the community. A blog is maybe another one. But, the downside of using a platform like YouTube or Instagram, great, you have all these followers, but you're subject to the rules of the playground you're playing in. So I always try to encourage people to try and capture that community in other ways. It's like transcribing those videos to blog posts and get people to opt into your email list so that they get dripped when you produce every new video, or at least you have their email address and you have a community that's non-platform dependent. So we definitely seen that too. And also it's like coming back to the data side of it too, is you might have somebody on your email list that you'll find trends where the people that they don't open emails in the beginning, but then once they open one, there's a certain amount of chance they're opening the next one. And then there's a certain amount of chance the next one. And then then you see how many people, the same people that open your emails are the same people that convert to, say you're selling an ebook book, convert to a customer in a month or so. You start to build, there's all that data, and even if they open the email or not, and what that means for you, I guess over time, you could kind of like, then kind of tailor it. You almost know what people are going to do before they do it. Yeah, absolutely. You get more data on it, so it's always a good thing, right?
Yeah, and you can get lost. You can get lost in that too. So there's that side of it as well. But yeah. So I think to wrap it up, I think this is a lot of valuable information in here. A lot about the marketing side, the influencer marketing side, and I like how we kind of went into some of the nuances too, because I think that gets overlooked, but it's definitely important. So Andy, I really do appreciate you coming on here and explaining what you do and talking with me on the podcast.
Great talking to you, Ryan. Happy to do it.
Awesome. All right, guys, this has been No CMO Podcast, episode 9 with Andy Theimer. All of his information about his current companies, previous companies, his bio is going to all be in the show notes, whether you're watching or listening. So once again, No CMO, episode 9. And that's a wrap, folks.